Hi, my name is Brooke Sutton, and today I will be completing the final assignment, People and Culture Interview. And my personal cultural or ethnic background is Caucasian Christian. And today I will be interviewing
Rebecca Reyna.
And your cultural or ethnic background?
I am Hispanic and in a same-sex relationship.
And your age?
27.
Gender?
Female.
Education?
A high school diploma.
And occupation?
Sales rep.
All right, now we will begin the question portion of the interview. All right, question number 1. Please describe the most important values and beliefs of your culture.
I would say the most important beliefs of my culture and ethnicity would be acceptance. I feel as if no matter what differences my family or my personal beliefs might consider, we are very accepting of each other's opinions and thoughts. Being in a same-sex relationship, being Hispanic, as you may know, the Hispanic culture is almost 90% Catholic, and the Catholic Church has been known to not have the most accepting views of a same-sex relationship. But through that all, we have each other's back, and we are there for each other.
Question number 2. Please describe important cultural events, celebrations, and practices in your culture.
I feel as a Hispanic, there isn't anything that we don't celebrate, whether it be a birthday, anniversary, Christmas, quinceañera. That's a big coming of age party for a young woman in the Hispanic culture. Something I'm entertained doing for my own daughter. There's not an opportunity that we don't take advantage of to spend time together as a family.
What are some reading materials, films, or videos that can help us learn about your culture?
Coco, I think, accurately describes the Hispanic culture, especially as you mentioned in your previous question, as far as what are some traditions that are present in my culture or ethnicity. Dia de los Muertos, also known as Day of the Dead, is accurately described in that movie, and it really portrays the Hispanic values of life and death, the circle of life. The movie has received numerous awards, and then I took my own daughter to see it, and it just very much accurately described who we are as far as a culture or community goes.
And what other materials or films or videos can we watch to help us learn in regards to your same-sex relationship?
The Fosters is actually a really good show that I found. I found it on Netflix. It originally derived from, I believe, ABC Family, which is a cable channel per se. It's produced by Jennifer Lopez, who's also Hispanic. She's Puerto Rican, and she is a prime example of success per se. Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. She produced a show that portrays a same-sex family who is raising multiple adopted children of biracial relationships and any of the hardships or struggles that they may face that even same-sex couples face. It definitely allows you to see both sides of the spectrum.
How do you think others outside of your culture view your culture?
I'd say that very tight-knit as far as my ethnicity goes. I think that there's some struggles as far as culturally goes. Being in a same-sex relationship, I feel like there's some prejudice or discrimination. But as far as being from the Hispanic culture, I would say that people would say that Hispanics are very tight-knit. There isn't anything we wouldn't give or sacrifice to make sure that our own were taken care of.
What are the fondest memories you have from your childhood?
Probably making tortillas with my grandma. Tortillas, per se. I get made fun of for the way I say it. Growing up, we didn't have much. We actually didn't have anything. I grew up in a house with no central air heat, which was not common for my time period. We used to, and looking back, it's funny to say that they're even fond memories because growing up with no central air heat wasn't fond, but I appreciate now, looking back, the times that I lived in that house, because my great grandmother, who I lived with, would get up an hour before us, and she would light the furnace, and we used to have to turn the blow dryer on as we took a shower because it was our only source of heat. And getting out of the shower, you're freezing cold, or taking turns making breakfast. And whoever made breakfast, it was almost a privilege because you got to cook in front of the gas stove. So you lit the pilot and you'd stir your oatmeal, or actually what we called it was malto meal was what we ate. And you get to stir it and make it, but you stood in front of the heat the whole time. And looking back in retrospect, it actually was very sad scenario, but it was probably one of my favorite memories.
Have you ever experienced prejudice or discrimination?
Absolutely. Even within our own families. My partner has a family who grew up very privileged. We're both of Hispanic culture, but from opposite ends of the spectrum. My family was very poverty stricken, to say the least, and her father was an entrepreneur of sorts. Didn't have a fancy college education, but he built a telecommunications company, and they took family vacations. They went on, multiple excursions throughout her lifetime. She's actually 10 years older, so not only do we have an age gap, which is a taboo subject in some cultures, regardless of your gender identity or your sexual orientation. And to have that on top of being in a same-sex relationship, it wasn't something that she previously discussed with her family. So it was very much a culture shock, or a culture shock, not so much an ethnic shock, but definitely a culture shock. Nobody in their family had really come out as gay or lesbian or bisexual or any term you want to put on it. There was a point in time where they actually had tried to bargain with her and pay her off, per se. They told her they'd buy her a new house or whatever it was that she wanted, anything as long as she didn't continue the relationship with me. We've since gotten past that, but there was definitely a point in time where it was prejudiced or just discriminatory.
Given what has happened in recent events, what do you think can be done about prejudice and discrimination, in your opinion?
You really just have to teach acceptance. Honestly, I think that that's the biggest thing, is that for you to be okay with anybody else's ethnicity or culture, you have to be comfortable in your own. And if you're not, you aren't going to get very far.
What do you think is the biggest misconception about your culture?
Culturally, I feel like the misconception is that it's a taboo subject, or when you're in a same-sex relationship, I think it's a misconception that you desire everybody of your same sex. You're put in a position where you're with a group of friends, and then that friend starts to doubt you. Well, does she like me? Well, just as in a same-sex relationship, not every guy likes every woman. So not every woman who happens to be a lesbian is going to like every woman. It doesn't work that way. Ethnically, I think that the common misconception would be that Hispanics are the bottom of the barrel, that we're the hard workers, that we take the jobs that nobody wants. But there is prime examples of successful Hispanics. I mentioned Jennifer Lopez earlier, and she's an idol for me, per se. Not that I have any desire to pursue dance or production of TVs or movies or anything along those lines, but I relate in the sense that she started from the bottom. She grew up in the Bronx, grew up in the projects. She didn't have anything really. And she climbed any ladder, and now she's a fashion designer. She produces TV shows, movies. She's a dancer. She's the definition of success, especially as a woman. And even then, there's their own differences in the Hispanic culture about how successful women can be, per se. And she's defied all the odds. So I think that that's a big misconception, that Hispanics are at a disadvantage.
Something that you just mentioned was about women can only be so successful in the Hispanic culture. What do you mean by that?
I would say that in Hispanic culture, women were not necessarily looked down upon by any means. In fact, a woman was actually idolized for all the things that a man couldn't do. I think that as a society, there's this common conception that, or rather a fight almost these days, that what men and women are equal. And in the Hispanic culture, it's a little bit different. It's equal, but not yet on the same level. Women were to fill in the gaps. They were to be the support that the man couldn't fill, whether it be taking care of the kids, cooking, cleaning. I mean, it was just, I almost feel like the Hispanic cultures with almost in a different time. Like they're not as up to date with gender identity or gender roles or those sort of things. It really is just women were not looked down upon, but they were not necessarily equal.
And the last question is, as religious, ethnic, and cultural diversity increases in our society, what do you think schools can do to better prepare students to interact with others who are different from themselves?
I would say definitely teaching acceptance, acceptance of yourself and acceptance of others. I think that schools should be more inclined to teach empathy, sympathy, compassion. There's so many things, especially if you take into consideration in recent events, school shootings. One of the most common things I feel like is brought up is mental health. And just taking that, for example, I grew up with a mom who was diagnosed with several mental health disabilities. And you don't ever really know what the other person is feeling or thinking, and you really need to place yourself in one's shoes. And whether that be a mandatory class or an elective class, I really think that there needs to be a class built around empathy and sympathy and compassion for other people. I think about back in high school where I took a home economics class or a child development class, and you had this egg that you had to care for, and you partnered with a member of your class, and you had this egg that you had to take care of like it was your kid. Why not put kids in a scenario where a female student is working with a female student and they happen to have a child, and this child is being bullied for the choice of their parents? What do these kids do? How do they approach it? How do they handle these real life scenarios? And I think that if we can get to a point where it's publicly acceptable without hurting someone's feelings or worry about judgment or offense, if we could really just focus in and hone in on these taboo subjects and make them real life scenarios, I think that these students would be more inclined to be accepting of the hardships or obstacles or even cultural or ethnical differences of their peers.
And that will conclude our interview. Thank you.